So I have finally seen Avatar: The Way of Water, and I'm happy to say that director James Cameron has done it again. I was floored by the visual immersion and elevation of this sequel, and with Cameron being one of the best at bringing sequels to life, it's hard to understand why anyone would doubt him to begin with. It's not a perfect sequel, and from a writing and plot perspective there are issues here, but as a fan of that original film, I got beyond more than I was expecting. Before I get into my spoiler review, discussing the reasons why I loved the Avatar sequel, if you want to see much more videos on Avatar 2 during its release, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. But without further ado, let's dive into my review for Avatar: The Way of Water. So it's been a long wait to see Avatar: The Way of Water finally come to the big screen, and after much anticipation, James Cameron's film does not disappoint. The original film in 2009 blew some people away with its technology, while leaving others disappointed with the plot. I wasn't one of those people, and for me, the cinematic experience of that film delivered in a big way, a way that only could exist on the big screen. But regardless of what you feel towards the original film, in my opinion, Avatar: The Way of Water is grander and ultimately better than that film on nearly every level. It's of the largest scale when it comes to blockbuster cinema, polished with a heightened sense of emotion and the reoccurring romanticism and connective themes that Cameron loves to thread throughout a lot of his films. The plot, dialogue, and teases for what's to come in the future films do hold this back from being a masterpiece on every filmmaking level, but what I will say is that Avatar is a masterpiece of visual storytelling. Following a quite rushed introduction, The Way of Water starts to gather its footing and make you invested in where things are heading and what characters we will follow in the long run. Jake Sully has gone full Na'vi alongside Ney'tiri, and it's clear that they remain centrally important to the togetherness and family thematics at play. But the screen time becomes directly involved with focusing on their children, whether it be their biological kids in Netayam, Loak, Tuk, and Kiri, or their adopted human son Spider. We soon learn that they have to leave their home after Jake's old adversary Quaritch is back from the dead and on a path of revenge. There's more to this than meets the eye though, and after escaping their old home, the Sully family thinks that staying with the Metakaina people, led by Tonawari and Ronal, will work in their favour, but we soon learn that the both of them also cross paths too. While this might sound similar in beats to the original from an early plot perspective, it's easy to forget just how well Cameron takes his characters and themes and fills them with a high level of urgency and emotion. The same is true with The Way of Water, and then when you add on that the most revolutionary digital filmmaking is supporting it, it's hard to look away. The filmmaker knows how to build up to a massive conclusion and convey the stakes on an unprecedented scale. You feel for these characters when they are on the brink of death because you spend hours with them, getting to know their edgy personalities and their true spirit. The Way of Water also does just the right amount of sci-fi, and it's through centrally delivering a story about family, the environment, and how they both connect that makes this another fabulous sequel. Cameron knows how to approach universal themes in a way that connects to a lot of people. In particular, it's with Cameron's filmmaking execution that allows the scope of this story to work as well as it does on the big screen. The action, for one, has a cinematic fluidity to it, and this is especially true with the final hour of insane breathless sequences that lead into a quite average climax. But that doesn't ruin it, because for most of the runtime you're suspended in the world of Pandora. The final hour took me back to Top Gun Maverick in a weird way, and how the conclusion of that film completely satisfied viewers with its high-octane final act, which followed a sustained build-up. The final act of The Way of Water is eye-popping to say the least, with Cameron displaying a full use of the film's massive budget in every single frame. But what Avatar 2 does so well is through the way it takes this insane action and gives it all an emotional resonance. As the film goes on, we get increasingly attached to the Sullys, and this is especially true with Sigourney Weaver's Kiri and new Na'vi character Loak. Most of the children provide a level of importance or urgency to the plot, even if it is thinner and quite similar at times to the original film. Sam Worthington's Jake is great again too, retaining a similar presence to the 2009 film, but by the end of this outing, you'll realise that it's actually Zoe Saldana's Ney'tiri that delivers in a more striking way when it comes to the two of them. Again, while the dialogue is at a similar shabby level, the natural performances and detail that goes into the characters' mocap expressions help to carry this level of emotion and rawness over the line. Ultimately, James Cameron knows how to deliver a sequel, upping the ante not just in the powerful storytelling, but in the visual filmmaking that carries it. Speaking of that visual filmmaking, Avatar 2 is rightfully a display of jaw-dropping visual effects that were once again developed by Weta. From the superbly detailed Na'vi faces, showing much deeper expressions, to the greater depth in the many landscape frames, to the reefs of the Metakaiina's camp, this is the most immersive that digital VFX has ever been in a recent blockbuster. A lot of blockbusters today, such as the plethora of comic book movies, tend to spend less time perfecting the VFX in given frames, and the way they are particularly shot is a big problem surrounding that outcome. But Cameron's elevated motion capture techniques, especially in the film's outstanding underwater sequences, make this a technical beast to behold. The 13 years that have passed since the original have given Cameron and his team the time and tools to surpass the original and make the CG seem almost real here. Heck, there's scenes and shots where Na'vi and human characters are together and it looks totally seamless. It feels authentic with its complete immersion on the alien world of Pandora and makes you wonder if James Cameron actually took a camera and flew to Pandora himself. And speaking of the camera, the cinematography has to have a shout out here, as the fluidity of the camera movement in certain sequences, especially in those in the final act, makes this all the more a visual masterpiece. It's then only helped to a greater degree when composer Simon Franklin is able to deliver an emotive and sweeping score that both harkens on beats from James Horner and uses its own cues too. And when it comes to the introduction of high frame rates, that was also pretty great in the scenes, switching between 24 and 48 frames per second. While I've heard some people critique it, it seems like it all depends on what screen you watch the film on. The Dolby screen I saw it on was fine, but with others it may be more jarring. For me though, the HFR looked especially good underwater, and I think with time and even deeper experimentation on the sequels, this could be a great tool for future filmmakers to consider using, depending of course on the project they are making. So visually and technically, Avatar: The Way of Water raises the bar for heavy VFX blockbusters in the years to come and shows that yes, you can do it right with more care put into it. The Way of Water's revolutionary VFX and technology only strengthens the film's themes and discussions by truly immersing you in that world. And it's a filmmaker like Cameron who can bring this level of artistic control when it comes to delivering something greater than your typical large-scale blockbuster. Overall, Avatar 2 is another excellent James Cameron sequel. While it doesn't reach the sequel heights of Terminator 2 Judgment Day or Aliens, it's still a fantastic expansion that builds upon the original in so many ways, but primarily through its emotive storytelling and world building. Of course, it still suffers from problems that the original faced, such as with the characters' decision making or with the use of bad dialogue to underplay some of the greater scenes. There's further questions to be answered too, and I would have liked more of a complete feeling tale too. But we all know that Cameron is building this world out with multiple sequels in the years to come, and I'm sure that looking back, if he continues to deliver, these problems will be ironed out or greatly improved upon. Having said that, Avatar 2 is still a monumental achievement from the filmmaker, and one that is Cameron at his most caring when it comes to the environment and the oceans. A greater focus on family, parenting, painting and the connections to the outside world make this story much harder to forget. It's more personal, and the visually staged action and spectacle only elevates the intimacy to greater heights. It's clear that Cameron has a universal pull when it comes to grabbing people with themes, visuals, and storytelling, and Avatar: The Way of Water just reminds us of how big that pull really is. With Top Gun Maverick and The Batman, it's another great example of what escapist blockbuster cinema once was, and what clearly it still can accomplish. But that was my spoiler-free review for James Cameron's Avatar: The Way of Water. While the narrative is messy at times and plot points will likely be expanded upon with more movies, the spectacle of Avatar 2 drives its narrative forward, and it also guides a more emotive sequel that delivers just the right beats. It's a movie that you'll want to watch multiple times, maybe once for the outstanding technological advancements and emotive storytelling, and twice to revisit the characters and things you missed in a much deeper way. I'm looking forward to that second screening to see if these things do leave a larger impact, and I will of course address them in a video essay that I'll do in a few days' time. But right now, Avatar 2 is the kind of blockbuster event to make you look back at other blockbusters over the past decade and wonder why more effort wasn't put in from a filmmaking perspective. Many criticise that it's taken too long for an Avatar sequel, and while I can understand that point to a certain degree, it's a film like The Way of Water that makes you understand why Cameron took so long to make this just how he wanted to. It's a visual masterpiece that improves upon a lot of the areas from the original film, giving a much more connective and sweeping story with a world that we've only just begun to explore. I'm giving Avatar 2 a rating of 8.5 out of 10. But to those who have already seen the film, what do you think of James Cameron's Avatar: The Way of Water, and do you agree that the filmmaker has crafted another great sequel? Again, it's all subjective, and I appreciate a range of reactions and reviews, so let me know down below in the comment section what you personally thought towards the film, alongside things that stood out with your first impressions. For lots more videos surrounding Avatar 2 during its release, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.